When we decided to buy and rehab a 32-passenger commercial airplane, we knew there was going to be a lot of projects and a lot of work for us to do. What we did not see coming was that on the way home we were going to hit a bump that was going to completely dislodge, break off the nose of our airplane. After spending way more time than we had planned for to reattach the nose of our airplane, we then got to work on some of the major problems. One of the big things we needed to address right away were the broken windows at the front of the airplane. David quickly got to work building a new frame for the window, cutting the plexiglass for the window, figuring out how to mount and screw the plexiglass windows into the airplane, and now it is time to waterproof and make these windows look like they've been there all along. We've got a lot of work to do today, but here's a sneak peek of how the windows turned out. First things first, we had to reattach the wood nose piece that goes between the two plexiglass windows. This was something that we had removed in order to be able to fit the windows in, and now that everything was securely in place, it was time to reattach it and caulk around everything. I hate to say it, but there was a lot of caulking that needed to be done with this project. David is definitely not a professional caulker. He definitely does not love or even really like caulking, but we both knew it was going to be really important to have a very good seal around these windows to make sure that the elements, we live in Michigan, there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of snow, this plane is going to be sitting outside, so there's a lot of things that this is going to have to endure, so we want to make sure we created a good seal around the windows before we went ahead and started painting.
All right, we're out here today, hopefully you're going to put the butyl tape, hopefully it'll be warm enough we can squeeze some of that out and make a good seal. While the sun's still trying to make its way past the trees and start warming this up a little bit more, we're working on the curved windows here. And if you can see here, we did re-caulk, but there are some holes that we're not sealing, so we need to make sure we go back and get those. Also, if you see how there's movement, we want to solid that up a little bit, so I'm taking a pick like this, kind of clearing out around it. And since there was water damage to those pieces, it seems like the screws aren't holding, the old ones. So we're putting actually longer screws in to make sure that we can get a solid connection there. All right, so we're just going around and making sure that we're making that a little bit more solid.
It took us a while to figure out what in the world we were going to put around the windows to not only make them waterproof, but also make them look nice. Eventually, David did find some trim pieces that would work really well with the butyl tape and also be able to paint on. Unfortunately, they were too wide, so David had to use the saw to make them just the right width.
You can see my setup. I had a problem with the plastic bending down and then hitting that, so I ended up putting one of the bifold doors. We're remodeling our house, so put one of the bifold doors on there so it can slide easier when I'm pushing it through the saw.
Since we needed a nice warm day to install these trim pieces to make sure that the butyl tape really squished down the way we needed it to, we were really disappointed when we realized that the windows were actually going to need more caulk. We found that the first layer of caulk didn't completely seal everything. There were little small holes, and even though we thought that the butyl tape would probably seal it enough that those small holes in the caulk wouldn't matter, we really didn't want to take any chances. That was just too big of a job to have to go back and redo later. In the end, David got the caulk gun out and, much to his dismay, started caulking once again. As you just saw, David had pre-cut all of the trim pieces so they were the right width, but we still weren't sure what length each of them needed to be. This was definitely one of those jobs where you needed at least 20 hands to do it well. I had to drop the camera a few times to lend a helping hand and at least try to make myself useful.
At least this stuff's decent to work with. Now, this should match up with us. Glove.
You're a pro. Start your own business. Airplane window repair.
Fixing. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get hired. This stuff will last. Yeah. Going 200 miles an hour in hurricanes and stuff.
For those that haven't been following, no, this airplane will not be flying.
I don't know, will it?
Not with me in it.
kiddos would like to see it fly.
I have full faith in you when it comes to window repair. However, creating new wings and an engine cockpit, I think might be out of your league.
After going through the tedious work of measuring out the trim pieces to fit the window, they weren't exact. David went ahead and trimmed the corners when he actually got it up on the window, but for the most part the trim pieces were the right size. We then got the butyl tape from under our butyl tape warmer, also known as our family dog Wicket. We wanted to make sure that the tape was good and warm so that when we applied it to the trim, it would be good and sticky, and when we then took the trim and stuck it to the edge of the plexiglass windows, it would have a really good seal and ultimately make the windows so waterproof that it would protect the cockpit from any water damage down the road. David repeated the whole process on the other window and then went ahead and finished up by adding one extra piece down the middle between the two windows. Unfortunately, this did cover up the wood piece that originally was there. However, it was in such bad condition we just didn't know if we'd be able to paint and restore it to look that good anyways. So ultimately we decided to cover it up, that way making it more waterproof and looking a little bit more finished.
Terrible. I got nervous when you were looking at me. So today's project is going to be painting the trim around the windows on the airplane. David did a really good job putting the trim up, but it's bright white and it doesn't really match the window trim that's already there around the curved windows on the edges. So I'm going to be painting them.
And I got some blue paint that we matched at Home Depot. We took a chunk off the nose strip on the plane there and we brought it in and they paint matched it for us. The gray turned out well, but we'll see about the blue.
Yeah, hopefully they did a good job. I usually like to just freehand painting and I don't usually use tape, but up here and there I felt like it was kind of hard to reach, and also this brush is not in the greatest of condition, so I felt like I was just gonna get it all over the windows if I didn't tape it. So I did decide to tape up there. Didn't trust myself.
It's like neon blue.
Yeah, it's not exactly matching.
Pretty concentrated there. What do you think? Should we have kept it white? Going with yeah.
I mean, then it wouldn't match the side windows.
That's true.
I just got done painting the trim around the windows with the first coat, and I'll be honest, it looks terrible. It looks really bad. It doesn't match at all. We're hoping that another coat maybe makes it look better. I don't know, it looks like my kids painted on it with a blue marker at this point.
After giving the first coat a little bit of time to dry, I went to work on painting the second coat. We weren't sure if this was going to be 2 coats, 3 coats, 4 coats, or what. It was a little bit cooler in the day by the time I got to the second coat, so the sun wasn't drying my paint quite as fast, but probably still faster than it should have been. The other thing was that I was still using a brush that was not that great of quality, so that could have contributed to why even the second coat didn't actually turn out that good.
Hopefully that dries darker.
It's going to be an unexpectedly nice fall day today. Have warm enough weather to actually do some painting. So we are hoping to get a last coat on the windows with our blue paint. I'm going to try using this sponge brush today because the paintbrush that we used the last 2 times, it was kind of streaky. I'm not sure if it was so warm and the sun was on it that it was drying faster than I could like smooth out the streaks, or if it was the brush. So I'm going to try the sponge, and we're doing it before it gets into full sun, so hopefully it has a nice finished look when we're done. Finally, after putting the 3rd coat of paint on, the blue started to look like the right color, and there really weren't that many paintbrush bristle marks in the paint once it dried. Nothing that you'll be able to see unless you're really close. So overall, we're really happy with how it turned out. If you want to see where we started this crazy journey, head to this video on your screen here. You'll see how it all started.